we're back. I like this track, so going with it. Alright, well, I hope there is no issue with the stream right now. I've had sometimes issues where if the stream is stopped and then started again without canceling out my OBS, that there will be issues. And if that's the case, I apologize. But we're gonna try and make some progress on this in the meanwhile. And I hear the Discord thing happening in the background, but I'm not gonna look. So a lot of this has to be done on faith a bit. Resisting the temptation to be fully engaged. Now there's some interesting line thickness discrepancies happening that I can bring up. Look at all these gross layers. Okay, so here, some of these lines here on Link are tighter than they are here on the Stalfos. Now, that's not necessarily bad because this Stalfos is closer to camera. So I think it's justifiable somewhat to have a thicker line weight. But I don't want it to feel like there's such a discrepancy that it feels like there's two different hands, like artistic hands at work here. So I want to watch that a little bit. Now that I've got this Stalfos looking pretty decent, I can actually allow the Link drawing to be back in the composition without feeling like it's competing too much. So let's go with that. Now, of course, given how disorganized all this is, I cannot find which layer I'm supposed to be looking for, but I was able to do that by right-clicking on a pixel of the layer. Generally, you can bring up the selection screen where you can pick the layer. If anybody's curious or a fan of the music that I'm playing right now, it's called Zelda and Chill. Zelda and Chill. There's 3 volumes. Most of the tracks are fire, as they say. As they say, the kidlets say. And I haven't run into any copyright issues with them thus far. But who knows? Who knows if that will hold true? Drawing the pelvis at this angle, sort of like a butterfly kind of shape. And then maybe we see some of the femur. I don't mind making the femur look a little outsized and like that. Maybe it feels like that leg is lifting up a bit in space. You could even see it as if the Stalfos leg, here's the tibia, so it's changing direction. Tibia, fibula. But I don't like how that's sitting compositionally. Let's kick that tibia out a bit more. the way this stuff overlaps has to work. In the composition. One thing, while I can't necessarily get too distracted with chat, I do have to keep an ear out for email notifications that may be popping up on this screen. Zach had a comment. I don't know if you saw that advice somewhere or if you knew it intrinsically, but that's a great approach. Stream the same whether it's one person in the chat or 1,000. So don't even watch the viewer account. However, the really big streamers get such an insane chat that a lot can hardly even read the chat. Yeah, I've noticed that, like my brother is a streamer and his stream is incomprehensible. Like, I'm glad that he has followers and they're supportive of him. That's amazing. And some of them even watch this, which is really cool. But the way that chat goes, I'm not sure how to even interpret how it's almost like its own language. I feel like a boomer being so out of touch with the lingo, but there's just the emojis and all the things. It's difficult for me to keep up while watching other people's streams. I can't imagine the same thing happening here. And this stream is not intended to blow up. This is just a good way for me to practice best case or best practices for my own sake. It's a good habit. Eventually it might dovetail with other skills like teaching and lecturing, which I'd like to get into eventually. I have a lot of experience, so I can foreseeably do that sort of thing in the future. Until that happens, this is a great substitute so that I can make that pivot when it's called for. Looking at my emails. Ooh, my credit score has changed. It went up. That's good. It was quite low for a while. Okay, let's see here. So I don't mind right now it looking like we can sort of feel that leg there. But even so, I might want to kick it out even further. But that's a small thing that can get adjusted down the road. You don't want to get too bogged down in exactly what's happening where sometimes. I would like to see if I could try and get this Stalfos mostly done by 1 p.m. So that's 20 minutes. Now I'm going to monitor my emails because the client is going to ping me as soon as they actually have the meeting date arranged. I won't discuss it too much, but this other client, while they are theoretically a good client in terms of the amount of work they've needed from me thus far this year, they are a challenging client in that they don't have a lot of good boundaries historically. And they are also a little bit... They don't hesitate to replace people that they think aren't getting things done in a way that they want them to get done, aka extremely quickly. So it's a bit of a beast to appease. Today's other sponsor is Coca-Cola. I finished my coffee. Now we're on to the next dose of caffeine. And soft drinks are not good for you, but more typically on this stream, I would be working at night and I'd be drinking whole bottles of wine or glasses of whiskey. So compared to that, Coke is like a healthy beverage. Okay, well, we know that if this is the scapula here, and the elbow for this arm is here. Then there's a humerus here that mostly is going to be undrawn. But we still need to account for it in space. From here, I'm giving these guys shields. These guys are straight out from, what is it, Jason and the Argonauts, the Ray Harryhausen film with all the stop motion skeletons, and or Evil Dead Army of Darkness was a great skeleton fighting film. Classic Sam Raimi. Yeah. I'm going to... the radius at this angle connects at the elbow on top of the ulna from this angle. So there has to be some crossover there. That means the elbow here kind of looks like that. It's correct over here for what I've set up. But here, this will look better. And I also want to be decisive about where this forearm is going in space, like it's going away from camera. This elbow is decidedly closer to camera than this wrist. So we know that it's going away from us in Z space. This is a big issue that happens a lot in drawing these sorts of action stuff, where there's a lot of action-y things happening, but the people end up feeling like they are flattened in Z space, as if you took a dynamic composition and compressed it in a microscope slide like a bug, and they become flattened. So there's very little foreshortening sometimes. I think in this case, it even makes sense for me to embrace that a little bit more. So I might shorten the forearm a bit to really underscore that, because at full length like this, it doesn't look like it's going away enough. But I'll do that next. First, I'm going to draw the hand, the bones of the hand here. And I want it to have this kind of contorted, like, you got me. Those bones are too small. I will make them bigger. All these carpal bones are definitely going to be stacked on top of each other, so we're not going to see a ton of them. This thumb bone will yield to two thumb bones that go out like that. then I want to get a sense of like the wrist curving back, like you know, so it's not it's big difference. That feels a little more substantial, and you can see I have to deviate now from my original sketch a bit. But that's okay. So these were the metacarpals, parts of the long finger-looking bones that you can't see. So these are the carpals, like that make up most of the wrist. And then you can feel these kind of chicken bones that come off of that. Those are the metacarpals. Then they get into the phalanges. Phalanges comes from, is it Roman or is it Greek? But I believe it means row of soldiers, which is kind of a cute way of thinking about it. I've done a bad thing here where I've drawn on top of a loose line that I sketched out, but I can just erase that out. Some of these fingers are going to articulate in different directions. The tip of the finger can look like, you know, like a pawn, like a chess pawn. Yeah, I think of it that way. But your average person has no experience with what bones actually look like. So if you can draw them with enough confidence, you'll probably get away with it pretty easy. Something about this feels like it needs more carpals. That feels good. And now I want to bring the whole thing. Oops. There we go. Just move it a little bit closer to the elbow to shorten the length of the forearm, so that it somewhat feels realistic, that even if the fingers are bending back towards camera, that the wrist is moving away from camera. That kind of dynamic opposition in Z space is really helpful in creating cool, dynamic images that have a convincing sense of perspective. Taking a quick look at my email situation, I don't see any meeting invites yet, Mr. Client, so I'm just going to keep going until I see that. Similarly, in theory, I should probably make this hand look substantially bigger. Right here it looks like it's a little bit bigger than that other hand. But I want to make it clear that it's closer to camera definitively. The line weight has scaled, but that's okay because it is closer to us in Z-space. And lo and behold, it does look better. Although boring, I am going to carve out a few minutes, every few minutes, to actually save my work. So that's what it's doing here. All right, great. There are what looks like 100, it's not 100, but it's maybe 35 or 40 layers there. And this canvas size is 9,000 pixels wide by 11,000 pixels tall. So you can see there's a lot of room to understand if my computer is complaining and wants to crash. I'm forcing it to account for a lot in this big file. That's not necessarily the best way to go about it. And I'll probably have to, before long, break up the project file into two, like an upper and lower half, just to give my computer a break, because it is too much, really. It'll just start crashing too much. It can't handle all the shit I'm throwing at it. And there's no reason why there has to be so many layers at this stage. It can definitely get simplified. I haven't done it because it feels like that would be boring to do on stream, and I can arguably choose to be lazy about it, but that's not best practices, and I want to exhibit some of those. So right now I'm trying to draw, and it's on a separate layer, the shield. And if you can see in this image, they have these rounded shields. And that's been pretty true for, I don't know, I'll just go with it, right? I think they've had different types of shields in the different games. Is there like a cannon shield that people will be upset if I didn't go with it? Maybe. Right now, I want to do my best to avoid something that's called a tangent. I think compositionally, I like what this is, but I want to make sure it doesn't feel like this line from the shield is going straight up this guy's nose. That stuff can be distracting. If there's something in a drawing that looks like you've made an intentional association, and it's not intentional, and it confuses the viewer, they're not going to like it, and they're not going to know why. So try, if we can, to limit what the viewer perceives to what we want them to perceive. That doesn't mean we have to control everything that they take away from an image. There can be a lot of room for leaving things vague and allowing them to use their own imagination. but we want to control what they are using their imagination with. So and like, are these straps in the perfect area of geometry for like where the shield is and where it should be, and given how rounded it is? And it's tricky. That's hard to say. I'm not an armorer. I don't know. Like, would those phalanges disappear behind there? That kind of looks more convincing. Like they're sort of slipping under the edge there. Maybe these straps could be in a different... Uh-oh, I see an invitation come in. Let's see here. 1:15. So we got 15 minutes. I accept the invitation. All right, so that's that. 15 minutes. Looks like they've got some kind of design on these shields, but they are going to be so... These designs are going to be... Well, I mean, the shield face is facing away from camera, right? So we're not really even going to see anything. We can make what looks like marks of design that are completely turned away from camera, so we can have a sense of that. But what's going to be more important is making this shield look like there are centuries-old battle scars or battle damage that is going to make it feel more real, more dangerous. Like this bad guy is a veteran of the undead wars of 1,000 foes, you know, whatever. Kind of strange Lord of the Ringsy kind of justification you can come up with. And I'm adding a little bit of texture because I don't want some of these spaces to feel like they're voided, like there's nothing there, or it's empty space, like negative space, because it's not. Something about the... I feel like the... Okay, I'm going to separate out the... That's one strap. Here's the other strap. Strap, strap. Okay, straps are now on the same layer. Straps. Shield, shield. Shield is on the same layer now. It's tricky to finesse And these don't have to, like, the decisions I'm making right now with the exact placement of this shield, these are not life sentences. If I come back to this tomorrow and I hate it, you just fucking change it. It's not that big of a deal. But I want to create, through a convincing sense of overlap, that there is depth to the objects that are interacting here. Right now, this is bothering me. The way the hand is there and looking in that way. We can adjust some things about it. Maybe by rotating it. Now, rotating in my program is very bad. Absolutely causes some issues, but do you see here where this fingertip is touching like this corner? And now it feels like there's not enough space here for the rest of the hand to articulate. That's gonna bug me. And it's gonna bug a viewer too, and they won't necessarily know why. So it's important to decide. We're either gonna have it overlap intentionally, or it's gonna not overlap intentionally, but it's not going to straddle and make it look like we didn't know what it wanted to do, or it was doing something unintentional, but we still want to have people think we are amazing artists that know exactly what we're doing. Can't have it both ways. Not the way we're doing this, at least. Now these other phalanges in the back, gonna have to fudge a little bit. But just having here this sense of this finger clearly overlapping this far edge of the shield, and this pinky being overlapped by the closer edge of the shield, feels more realistic. Now the only thing is, what the fuck is going on here? Make that look a little better. On a skeleton, you can get away with so much because, like, you could just, the mind arguably makes allowances for, like, maybe the bone section got chipped, or maybe there's a little bit of flesh that's still. Fistus Maximus. I like your handle. I too am a Maximus. Thank you. First time chat. Are you a wild-caught stream viewer via just browsing, or have you been around and lurking and unawares to me? Have I met you in real life and I don't know you by your stream handle? I'm not sure. And you don't have to respond. I'm not necessarily trying to make everybody engage with me directly. But I appreciate the compliment. If you're completely unawares, this is a Zelda project that I'm working on. It's not official, so this is just fan art. Speculative fan art. The other thing that I should tell you is that I'm gonna have to do a work call for my actual day job, which is storyboarding, at 1:15, which means at like 1:12, I'm gonna have to stop the stream so I can go potty and more or less like turn off my silly lights and stuff like that, because I'm gonna have to do one of those like work Zoom calls. If you follow the channel, you'll see the progress, and if you I have my Instagram handle up there, and I have started posting this artwork on Instagram in work in progress stages, or whips as we refer to them. Swords. Challenging. Almost enough time. Let's try and do it. Get this shoulder pad thing happening. At least get it started. You can see here there's a shoulder pad with one spike. Oh no, mine has like 3. We'll keep the 3. I think that shows more. I don't know. More danger. And I'm gonna make it irregular, so it's not... This doesn't have to then be this perfect cut half dome type of geometry. It can be irregular, similar to a turtle shell type of shape, which I think is called a carapace. I'm getting the 6th sense that my computer is going to crash, so I'm saving it a little more frequently than I normally would, but I know if I use the rotate function while handy on my program, it uses up a lot of memory and processor, and it's just gonna break. So okay, and as discussed earlier, we have an intentional overlap here. So for instance, like this part, that's clearly overlapped. The hand is clearly overlapping the sword. And if we erase this part of the hand, we can see the shoulder pad is clearly overlapping the arm and the hand here. It might look best if it feels like this part of the spike here could feel like almost like it's going away from camera at the tip. So these 2 points are coming closer to camera, and this one is going farther away, and we can control for that by sort of adding these lines to create that dimension. Oop, 115, I got a blast. All right, love everybody, and I'll see you next stream. Bye.